every day of God is faithful. You taught us that you are faithful to 1,000 generations of those people who love you. That's your promise. It's a solemn promise. It's an unbreakable promise. It's a covenant promise. And we believe that. And so, Father, we believe that our government needs your hand of blessing on it. We believe that our governors need your hand of blessing. And I know our churches need to be, Lord, revived and full of your Spirit. So I pray for this land, for this nation. I'm thankful for it. And I pray your help in Jesus' name.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
First thing on the agenda is recognition of minutes. To recognize minutes on January 27, 2020, and January 31st, 2020.
I do have one suggested correction, Judge, on the 31st agenda, item 18, the adjustment of 47 district attorney employee salary. The documentation says no action was taken on this item. I'm requesting a little clearer documentation. No action was taken by the direction of our county attorney, that the Commissioner's Court had no authority under an elected official's salary line item. So just some language around that discussion, which I know normally we don't get to that level of detail, but just versus a no action was taken, because I think that's an important call out for this discussion we had.
Well, we really can't do that. I mean, it's just no action taken. We have the video, we have the recording of the minutes to reflect that, and we can certainly give anybody a copy of that if you want that for future reference.
The video is, what's the retention on the video?
I have no idea. I have no control over the video.
Because that's only on YouTube. Yeah.
I have control over the audio.
Sure. So what's our retention just on the documentation? What I'm afraid of, because what has happened now, of course, I've been a member of the court now 8 years,
Right.
we'll often go back and reference. And because we don't have a sophisticated system yet, you have to go back and watch the entire video and you don't have that purview of that whole discussion, right? So that's what I'm trying to avoid in the future. So any direction that you can help us, I just want to call out that specific item because it has been very interesting over the years. So opening that up.
Well, again, and I can just give y'all a copy of the CD. You can mark it for your records since CDs have a long life on them, and so we can certainly do that.
Go ahead.
My concern, if we start doing that kind of stuff, is if this is minutes of what we did, and we took no action.
Right.
Per direction of our county attorney, which is
That doesn't
different.
matter.
It's my request,
Sorry.
and I'm hearing that it's declined and denied is what I'm hearing, which is different than other commissioners' court. So that's what I'm requesting, and I'm hearing that that's
Well,
denied.
but we've had this discussion before,
Right.
and not trying to be difficult.
No, that's
But
fine.
if you wanna hire a court reporter and have them come in
Sure.
and take the minutes of the court, that's certainly an option that the court has to
Sure.
do. And so, we've
So
come across
Julie-
that.
I'm asking for 2 sentences to be clear, but go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay. Given that, and what has been articulated, what is your recommendation? And just speak to that from your perspective of what the courting.
Again, the commissioner court minutes are to take record of the action that has been taken. And Scott has advised us a lot of times on other, items that we don't make record of. And I understand where you're coming from, but again, if we start doing that, then we're gonna have every Tom, Dick, and Harry wanting me to put in there why it was voted on this way, why it was, whatever the case may be. And so I believe that we're going down a slippery slope if we continue to do that, or if we do that at all.
So my request is on one exception for 2 sentences, and I'm hearing that's denied. Go ahead, Judge.
Okay. So recognized. Number 2, budget amendments to consider and act upon budget amendments for the fiscal year 2019-2020.
Yes, we just have this one single item transfer between pages, which is the software payments.
What
medical jury software.
Yeah, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. I make a motion that we approve the budget amendments as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, raise your hand. 5-0. Number 3, vouchers, to consider and act upon the approval and payment of the vouchers processed by the county auditor's office. Check numbers. Check number 189-337 through 189-543, and wire transfers 135-3 through 1360. In addition, for the tanker for the Road and Bridge Department, for a total of $6,583,056.13.
As stated by the county judge, for wire transfers and in monthly amount, the total of $6,580,056.13.
Have a motion.
Second.
Go ahead, second. Okay, have a motion and a
I
second.
have a discussion item, if I may. Carrie, page 19 of 30, check number 189-528, roughly 36,000. This is the tech share maintenance for the county attorney and district attorney's office. 2 line items of 18,000 each. Is this comparable to what we're expecting in budget? I know the first couple of years we got an estimate. Is this right on target with the estimate?
It is actually, this is a tiny bit less than what it was last year, but yes, right.
And are we at a point with this contract, that we're getting any revenue back in as a part of that agreement, on that tech share agreement?
We have gotten one capital payment back, and I believe it was about $5,000, but I'll follow up and send you the exact amounts.
Okay. And then will you remind me where those capital dollars go back into the budget? Is it general revenue?
Yes.
Thank you, Jessica.
Is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, have a motion and a second, all in favor, raise your hand. Number 4, insurance update. Okay, do you have anything on that?
There's nothing unusual.
Okay, so recognize from that. Number 5, Guyon Sanders Resource Center, discussion only to discuss possible location of the Guyon Sanders Resource Center on Carter County Dewey Street property. Kevin? Good morning.
Morning, Judge and Commission.
Morning.
My name is Kevin Starbuck. I'm here representing the Guyon Sanders Resource Center Board of Directors, which I'm a member of. With me also is Judy Wagner. She is our Executive Director, and Terry Good, who is our Board Chairwoman over the board. Many of you recognize that here in our community, we have a number of service providers who provide services to the homeless. And one in particular, the Guyon Sanders Resource Center, is a unique and unduplicated service provider in our community. And that it provides the basic services for our homeless population here in the community, with primary service being a homeless day room, which is nobody else provides day room opportunities for our homeless population. So on days like tomorrow, that will be critical to protecting our homeless population and providing them an avenue to get out of the elements. But we also provide a lot of the basic services. So for example, we have shower facilities and laundry facilities. We help them with IDs. We help them get on into the homeless management information system, which helps us to track their service providing, what services have been provided to them, and help to steer them towards services that might help them on that path of recovery and hopefully beyond into stability and reintegration into housing and other programs. So the Guyon Sanders Resource Center is a unique service provider, and one of the challenges we have is our building. It's a old 30,000 square foot building that used to be a true resource center. And over the years, we've seen that resource center fall by the wayside as service providers have moved to other locations, opting to not be in the resource center. So at this point, about the only services that are provided are those that are provided directly by GSRC in that building. Certainly, we do have partner agencies that come into the facility and provide services. Everybody from public health to Lester Street Charities provides feeding and other types of things, but for the most part, those core services are limited to those provided by the Guyon Sanders Resource Center. As part of this, we feel as a board that we are at a position in time where we're spending as much money on the facility as we are on providing services to our clientele. And it's from that perspective that we have been embarked on a mission to right-size the operation and look at what are our alternatives and opportunities to create a better model for sustainment of the Guyon-Saunders Resource Center. So it is from that perspective that we are looking to basically construct a 10,000 square foot facility, which is about a third of the size of our current facility, and design it and model it after what we have seen out of Westtown in Oklahoma City. A facility in Oklahoma City that is also a homeless day room and has other components to it, but provides avenues where it mitigates outside influences upon the homeless individuals that are at the facility. By basically having interior courtyards and things along these lines that people that are in the facility can not feel confined to the facility, but have additional services that are provided and have that barrier to outside influences that are such a challenge with some of our homeless population. So based on that model, we are looking to construct a 10,000 square foot facility to basically be the new home for the Guyon-Saunders Resource Center. And as part of that, as part of the sustainment model, we are looking to partner with the City of Amarillo's Community Development Department to relocate them to that facility. And we are working actively with Juliana Kitten as part of that process to look at what are those opportunities to relocate services from community development to this facility. Primarily, the Coming Home program. And the Coming Home program is a housing first program that we've already seen tremendous strides in our ability to address chronic homelessness in our community. So a combination of all these things will help us to basically create a better sustainable model for the Guyon-Saunders Resource Center and to create that opportunity for us to move the center forward in a positive direction in a right-sized facility with barriers to those outside influences that we have such concerns about that we struggle with at our current location and current facility. Where the Commissioner's Court, where Potter County comes into play is that we have previously had a property that we have purchased as a board on the south end of the North Heights neighborhood, and there was a lot of concerns related to the proximity of that property to the neighborhood and to citizens in that neighborhood. And as a board, we certainly are cognizant of that, and really our motivation was focused on proximity to Salvation Army and to Faith City Ministries as the two emergency shelters, but we also recognize that there was challenges related to that. So it's from that perspective that we've taken a step back and have been afforded the opportunity, or at least presented the opportunity to open into discussions with Potter County about a property that Potter County currently owns over off of basically 4th and 5th in between Bowie and Parker. And I think I've got all the streets right. But there's a large block of property, 4.5 acres, that the county currently owns and operates, using it for storage. And we've at least heard from Councilmember Vaughn in particular, excuse me, Commissioner Vaughn. I'm intermixing my language a little bit here, but Commissioner Vaughn, we've heard that there might be a willingness on the part of the county to work with Guyon-Saunders Resource Center and long-term the city to maybe make this an opportunity or a site for consideration. So it's from that perspective that we're here today to basically visit with the Commissioner's Court about, is there an opportunity for us to acquire 2 acres of that 4.5 acres that could be used for a future home for the Guyon-Saunders Resource Center. We already have in place grant dollars from the Amarillo Area Foundation, are pursuing grant dollars from the Bivens Foundation, are pursuing community development block grant funds from legacy funds that would basically be focused on the relocation of community development. And obviously the other biggest piece to the financial puzzle is the sale of the Guyon-Saunders Resource Building that we currently own. And we feel that between all of those, we will be in a very good position from a capital campaign perspective to move this project forward and construct a facility, but certainly are looking for those opportunities to find the right location. Now, all that being said, I would be remiss if I would say as a board, we don't have concerns with the location, and those concerns are primarily the fact that we are a mile from the Salvation Army emergency shelter and 1.6 miles from the Faith City Ministries location, their emergency shelter location. And with our homeless population, one of the most critical concerns is being in close proximity of each other so that we don't create barriers where people can't get to those emergency shelters back and forth. The upside with this is that the city has acquired the property south of that property, which will in turn be the future home of the Amarillo City Transit Transfer Depot, and also hopefully Greyhound moving their operations to that location. Now that's still well off into the future. I think that the best case scenario is that the city would look at moving forward with that project in January of next year. But by the same token, we feel that proximity to our transit operation may provide us opportunities to address those challenges we have with being moved further west and from the two emergency shelters that are currently primarily used by the homeless population. So it's from that perspective that we certainly are here to answer questions. And I've been in contact with Tad regarding how would we frame this, how would we move this forward, and he certainly has provided a few opportunities, and I think is as much as anything, it's a matter of if the Commissioners Court has interest in supporting this, then how do we engage the community, have that conversation with the community about this being possible, and then what are our opportunities to possibly create a legal framework to move this project forward. So I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
I have a question. You said at the beginning that the current building is 30,000 square feet, and you're gonna build it 10,000?
10,000.
Why would you not build something bigger?
We don't need to. We honestly only use a small portion of the building. The vast majority of the building is vacant. In the past, Catholic Charities, a number of other service providers, and I'm drawing a blank on some of them, but it used to be a resource center, and there literally was, the building was full of service providers providing services to the homeless. But over the years, different entities have moved to their own locations. Oklahoma City experienced something similar with Westtown, where agencies wanted to have their own location to provide their core services. At the Oklahoma City facility, basically what they do is they provide basically some office space that agencies can come in on an ad hoc basis to meet with clientele and provide services. And we would look to create a similar framework at the GSRC, which would lessen the footprint necessary for that. So if Regence Healthcare wanted to come in and provide health screenings, we would have a couple rooms set up that they could do clinical activities. The same thing with public health or WIC or other programs. Even Downtown Women's Center or others, if they wanted to come in and just meet with clients, we would have meeting space for that to take place in the building, but they wouldn't necessarily have permanent office space.
Jim, you mentioned that you're modeling it off the Westtown in Oklahoma City, and that is fairly very elaborate. But it's much larger than what you're proposing, given the fact that Oklahoma City is much a larger population than what we have here. But are you considering possible growth beyond what you articulating now with 2,000 square foot?
Yes, and part of that is that we've had conversations with Regence Healthcare in particular, even our public health department, about what would it look like if we put a clinical space in co-location with the Guy and Saunders Resource Center, which would afford that opportunity for possibly an extension of indigent care, especially preventive care, to try to avoid trips to the emergency room and things along those lines. And we've recognized within our homeless population, that's a huge burden on Northwest Texas Hospital from a financial perspective. Last year, they spent $8.5 million on care related to homeless individuals that they came to Northwest Texas Hospital's emergency room. So if we afford opportunities, and one of the things we've talked about is building about a 2,500 to 3,500 square foot clinical space that could be in addition to the facility. Within this footprint of property, we feel we could very easily accommodate that. But that may be something in the future as dollars may become available, that kind of expansion could take place, and whether it's Regence Healthcare or Public Health or others could potentially have some clinical space at that location that would provide those types of services to help our homeless population with medical care, primarily preventive care that would keep them from having to go to an emergency room setting where those dollars are so expensive.
Kevin, on your report, you talk about in 2018, the point in time count states Amarillo ranks the highest in the state of Texas for the population, national average 24%, Amarillo trending towards 34%. And then you talk about with the square footage, what's different about this facility is there will be a very program focused of how to alleviate this, right? Like what does this really look like? And I think the Come Home program, if I'm saying that correctly, is one version of that. What are other things that you're looking at in this population?
And this might be a good point in time to bring up, Judy Wagner to discuss some of her focus related to, and I'll kind of try to address it a couple ways. So yes, Amarillo from the point in time count of 2018, and we're going to see our numbers go down some through some of the efforts of our community development department and our service providers here in the community. They just completed the January 2020 point in time count, so we're going to see those updated numbers as we move forward. And the 2018 report is what's posted on the federal website, so that's why you have such a dynamic of timing. But Amarillo rates right at, we're in the state of Texas, we're at the top. 33 for every 10,000 individuals that are homeless. And that's on par with the state of California, not something to be proud of. Our chronic homelessness, where we see statewide and even nationwide averages of 24% of homeless population being chronically homeless. Here in Amarillo, we're seeing closer to 34% chronically homeless. So it's from that perspective that the Coming Home program is specifically geared to address chronic homelessness and address those that have been on the street for over a year or multiple times in a multiple-year period, and trying to really truly address those core issues and get them off the street and on a path to recovery.
And you broke down the number of people that actually live in Amarillo with those that are from elsewhere?
Well,
Figures like that.
and Commissioner, one of the things that we often hear is if you provide more services, more homeless will come. I simply don't believe that's true. And having gone to Oklahoma City, having gone to San Antonio, having gone to other larger metropolitan areas, they're providing far more services than we're providing here in Amarillo. I think the challenge that we have here in Amarillo is we are a regional hub. So that probably creates a little bit of added dynamic where some of our smaller rural communities maybe try to help move the homeless individuals in their community to Amarillo to help have us start to maybe address their problems that they simply don't have the resources to address them. But it's from that perspective, I don't think that we see any grand influx of people from outside of the Amarillo area that are homeless and coming to that. I think it speaks more to some of the challenges we have as a community related to poverty levels and how do we better address that and get people off the street. The fact is that HUD for at least the last 10 years has had a focus on housing first programs being a core focus, and the city of Amarillo has only implemented that in the last year and a half. So I think it's through the implementation of that hopefully we will see a reversal of our trends of chronic homelessness and start to reduce those numbers overall. And certainly I think as Juliana and her team finalizes the point in time count, I think we'll start to see those numbers on a trend downward, but we still have a long ways to go. And we still have to continue to be diligent and focus on those activities to address that. Related to the programmatic piece, and I appreciate you bringing that up, one of the things that we have found is that twofold. We want to provide an environment where we are engaging our clientele that are at the center in a path towards stability and recovery and beyond. And one of the challenges we have in our current centers, we don't have a lot of programs in place. Now, since we brought Junie on board, she has worked very diligently to start to implement programs, whether it's a work development program, working on your GED, helping you to just get your ID, and then from that, fill out job applications and helping people on the path of recovery. So there's a lot of things that we're doing in changing our focus internal to the center, rather than just being a location where you can come and veg out for a couple hours, to having programs in place that engage those individuals on helping them to move forward with recovery and getting themselves on a path towards getting into housing and off the streets and back and integrated with our community.
And it references on the documentation, the Community Development Division will be moving there. So is that the location in the Sims building today?
Correct.
That will physically move over to this
over there.
new
Correct.
property?
That is the component that we are looking to use our CDBG dollars to add to this project to help to offset the cost related to creating some office space for that group. What it does is not only does it co-locate them with our Guy Saunders Resource Center, it also puts the Coming Home program in direct proximity with clientele that they work with on a day in, day out basis, and provides for a broader spectrum of individuals at the center, employees at the center, to help augment. Currently, the Guy Saunders Resource Center basically has 3 staff that staff it throughout the week, and so as dynamic situations may come up, that puts a burden on our 3 staff members to do that. So by having additional personnel at the facility, it helps to just give a little more stability to the overall facility as they see more and more people coming through the facility.
Yeah, and roughly a $1.9 million investment from the facility, is that correct?
Correct, that's what we currently have estimated. Also on our board is Joe Street and several others, and he's had some contractors that he's worked with in the past, who have expressed interest in this project and want to be a good partner with us and try to help us make this a reality as low cost as it possibly can.
Well, Judge, I know you said, or you sat on the coalition, starting to address some of these issues, and so I think it's an amazing opportunity for the 2 municipalities to start to have this dialogue. What a beautiful thing to come together for a population that is so vulnerable, and it has a very program focused, a pathway to really get them out of homeless. Because there are some really dynamic, interwoven needs, and I think being sensitive to all of that, it's a beautiful way to work together.
There's a timeline on this, Kevin.
Well, time's always of the essence. There are realities with having a constructed facility and everything along those lines, and really for the most part, until we can kind of get something firmed up on a property to actually develop for this project, then that puts us in a position where we can list the current property on the market and hopefully get that sold. Hopefully work with whoever the potential purchaser would be to allow us to stay in operation so that we don't have a gap in operations. But a lot of pieces, moving pieces related to that. We would hope that in the next 12 to 18 months we could be operational at a new location. But we also are cognizant it costs money to operate the facility. We're operating it as efficiently as we possibly can. But
So are
the
you
sooner we can move, the better we can.
do you want to buy the old building, or do you see there, when you see people?
It would go on the market, would it not?
It would go on.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
what if someone says,
Well,
I'm not gonna home
it's well, you know, I can't answer what people's motivations are to buy property.
You might be getting that in court for a horse.
No, I'm just saying that there's a possibility someone would take it and do it for the same game.
There is that possibility, and that, you know, that would be.
I wouldn't
up
give
to
anybody
those.
any ideas, but I'm just saying.
Are you working with Nichols and also
Yes,
Chad
yes.
in respect to, putting the pieces together and, as conversation goes, what the implementing is? As far as discussions, as far as with, our attorneys and,
We've opened conversations with Tad and others just related to, you know, what would this look like? What kind of legal agreement could we make with the county to acquire the property? And I don't know, maybe Tad, you might want to weigh in on options. And that's really where we're at, is at least creating a starting point.
Yeah.
let me ask a question, is that, an issue for an executive committee because it is, real property and, hospital funding, is there something that we would need that, or can we have an open discussion and beyond the,
We can have an open discussion about that. The options are pretty simple. Sell or lease by auction or by sealed bid or through a broker. The best flexibility is through a broker. You can set the parameters. We want to sell this property or lease this property for this specific purpose. And offers that are received, you have the flexibility to review those offers and all the elements and pick the one that you find the most attractive.
We need, I'm sorry, Kelly, we need a broker if we're just gonna give.
Or even an interlocal, is that not a third option? I don't know where you guys are.
We can do it,
Discussion.
we can do it in but probably it would involve a lease. The
Sure,
statute,
no, sure.
Local government code lists the
Sure.
options. And those are the options I'm talking about before.
we have the options of pretty much, not how we would,
If I were gonna do it, I would go for the broker. That's one of the options under the statute, as opposed to a public auction or a sealed bid. Or we can do an interlocal agreement, which will probably.
if we get an interlocal, we wouldn't need to go to a broker.
Well, if we want. to
One
lease
thing
the
I would
property-
note really quickly is interlocal has to be with another government entity.
Sure, sure.
Now, if the city is planning to enter into this as an active participant, that might authorize it. We can't enter into an interlocal kind
No, definitely understand. I just threw that on the table because
Sorry,
the community development program going over is for the interlocal.
which would have to be with the city.
Sure, and that is with the city today. So Judge, if you would be open to it, maybe a couple commissioners have the dialogue with Tad and Kevin and come back to the court with a recommendation?
Absolutely. I think Nicholas wanted to add something really fast though.
I just wanna make sure everyone knows how to properly be used by the county right now.
Sure.
We're using about 2 acres of it, so on the north side of it where Travis dead ends, a fence could be put up, and the 2 buildings that I removed, that whole, east portion is not used, other than to throw tree limbs, things like that. The west portion from Travis over is our entire grounds, fleet, all their equipment, every bit of, anything to do with purchasing as far as, our vehicle deliveries, auction items, anything that purchasing uses, so, I would keep that in mind. And I personally, in my office, started receiving phone calls from a business owner over there about who's buying the land, or who's selling the land, or what's happening. So I just felt like I needed to let you guys know that they're asking me already what's happening to our neighborhood, you know, so, if there's a deal that's made, I would say we at least need to put a fence up down the middle of that, so that we can kind of continue what we currently use it for.
They could be telling us that, we could give up 2 acres without an issue, without having a problem.
I would have 0 issue with it, because right now, the only thing that we do on that 2 acres is I remove 2 buildings, and Road and Bridge has to spray the weeds when those same neighbors call and say, hey, the weeds are high, you know, so.
Kevin, you, asked for 2 acres,
2 acres.
just 2 acres?
Yeah, as I've been, this is a Google Earth calculation, so it'll give or take, but the entire property appears to be about 4.5 acres. We're asking for basically the 2 acres on the east side, which are currently, basically, it looks like there was a slabs for old buildings that had been torn down previously. But there is an old, what looks like a house structure
Engineering building.
that we would probably look to demolition, possibly, but.
I hadn't gotten over to the Google Earth, you still do that, huh?
Quick, quick, fast, and easy. So
I think, Commissioner McGill made a attractive proposal, advising the committee with 2 commissioners and working with, Diane Sanders, and certainly Nick was a part of that, attorney. So I think that's a, you make.
Would you like to be on that?
Absolutely.
You wanna make a motion?
I would, the way it's referenced is, discussion only, so I just wanna make sure I'm allowed to do that. But if the court is okay with kind of the nod for us, and I'm happy to serve on that committee as well, if everybody's okay with that, court level? Yep, sure. Okay,
Okay.
so I don't know that we need a formal
We
motion
don't need a
in the
motion.
agenda, but I'm happy to make that if we do.
So it's for discussion, we can do that.
Well, we can have it, put it on the agenda in 2 weeks.
Sure, okay.
Can I go back to the programming?
Yes, sir.
One thing well, there's basically 3 things that I don't think we've addressed. I mean, I had the pleasure of serving on the Interfaith Campaign for the Homeless several years ago. And the issue of mental health with homeless, the issue of drugs, and of course, we were concerned about spirituality. And I think all 3 of those have to be something involved with the programs that we go forward with. It's not just poverty. There's some mental health issues, there's
you know, related to that, the only way that we're gonna end homelessness in our community is to do it one individual at a time. There is no formula to solve homelessness that will work, because everybody's issues are different. Today, the Guy Saunders Resource Center is open on the weekends, primarily staffed by churches in our community, so providing that spiritual basis, where church groups come in, provide a meal and to interact with clientele, they come in on the weekends. Related to mental health, our community development program, as part of the Coming Home program, is partnering with Texas Tech. Dr. Stark, who is a licensed psychiatrist and provides mental health counseling and the like, works with our clientele on a regular basis, does an outstanding job. We found that to be even more successful when she is at a central location. If she stays at her office at Texas Tech, it's more of a challenge for people to go there. So she has started hosting office hours at our community development offices. We basically provide her an office space, and she can meet with clientele on a one-on-one basis and try to address some of those mental health challenges. And through that, hopefully, diagnose and if there's medications or other things that are part of that process, and then she certainly is in a position to assist them with that. So I think it's from that perspective that we look at it from, certainly there's some core things that we can do programmatically to address things universally, but there's also those things that are specific to each individual's needs to help them on that path to recovery.
Yeah, I think Judge, you would have a big contribution in this.
Absolutely. Mental health is a huge factor. Huge.
There would be opportunities, and I don't know how this might work, but certainly I think we'd be open to having conversations with the county about, related to some of the mental health processes that you guys undertake at the county level, if that shouldn't be co-located in this facility, or at least have that temporary space where a staff member can come over for a periodic basis to try to address those needs directly with those clientele that are at the center. So that's part of that overall vision of being inclusive and trying with our service providers. And certainly we already work very closely with Senecor and others, who are providing those alcohol and drug rehab programs, and trying to refer clientele to that if that's the right path to go on.
Kevin, as usual, be very informative. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it and look forward to working with you.
Okay, we'll
Appreciate
see you in
it.
a couple of weeks then.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Number 6, extension office salary adjustment. To consider an act on adjustment of salaries for 2 current positions in the extension office with no increase in overall salary expenditure. Holly.
Good morning, Judge. Good morning, Commissioners. Again, thank you for allowing me to be here to present our request. Yes, as mentioned, I would like to request an extension office salary adjustment. I'm requesting the adjustment of the 2 current positions, the program assistant and the office manager, to reflect the amounts that we presented in the chart. I hope you have that chart with you. Perfect. I have copies if you don't. Please note that there is no increase in the overall salary expenditures, and that is the request today.
Could you talk through the job functions that are changing, because this is an interesting topic, to my points earlier. And just to give the court a little bit of background, I did run this particular topic by Scott based on our last commissioner's court to say, does this even need to come to the court? Because the extension office reports to the court, they absolutely have to come to us, right? So when we have the discussion of how is it different for departments versus elected officials, this is a prime example. Job functions are changing, so Elizabeth, please speak to that detail.
Yeah, and I'm just very concerned about the dynamics of the description, the job description of those 2 positions. Why it is.
Yes.
Yes, and so, the program assistant position is an entry-level position. We kind of look at that as a stepping stone into AgriLife. And the salary for that position, I felt like we needed to review that because it was being paid at a higher rate than an actual AgriLife agent. And so, when looking at that, we felt like it wasn't correct. And so we needed to look at that. And also the office manager position needed to be reviewed as well, because the job responsibilities of that office manager, she oversees 5 agents, not just, and so we had to look at the responsibilities of that job And we felt that those salaries, the workloads needed to be reviewed and staying within our budget. It was recommended that we just flip those two salaries and start the program assistant position, which is now an open position, which made it actually good timing because it is open. And so the proposed budget amount for the office manager is 43,841. The proposed budget amount for the program assistant will be 36,058, which still leaves us within the total extension budget for both of those positions.
And
So-
to- oh, I'm sorry.
No, wait.
To Elizabeth's point, and obviously I'm the commissioner that oversees the extension office, and so we've had this dialogue, and how this particular topic is interesting for us as members of the court. This position is open, they are ready to offer the position, but they are waiting on direction from the court today, because obviously if they call a candidate, they're gonna wanna know what their salary is. The prime time to do that is when the position is open, not when people are in the positions and you're trying to make adjustments. That's just very uncomfortable for everyone. But again, because they do report to the court, they are required to come to us for approval versus elected officials that are allowed to do that without our knowledge.
So is there a job description initially?
Yes, we have job descriptions for both positions. The job description for the program assistant position is posted on the website because it is an open position.
What's the educational requirements for each?
The educational requirements for the office manager, we have associate's degree, but of course, previous experience may exempt those degree requirements based on the type of work and years of experience. And then on the education is associate's degree required, bachelor's degree preferred on the program assistant position. The office manager does provide supervisory, oversees the program assistant position, the direction from the agency.
I thought the program assistant was under the 4-H agent.
The program assistant, is not under the 4-H agent, is directed by all of the agents based on the job, the programming that program assistant was. So primarily, yes, the 4-H agent will direct them because they will be doing a lot of 4-H work. But at the same time, when they're doing adult or horticulture work, then that would fall under Megan. So the program assistant, the 4-H agent wouldn't really know how to direct that program assistant to perform those job duties. If the
As I
program
remember it though, when we agreed
yes.
to change that secretary position into a program assistant, that it was gonna be for the 4-H program assistant.
And I believe that was
When
at
was
the
that
time
changed?
when Tina Hicks had the position.
When, what, Tina?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Who now has become an agent,
Yes,
is that correct?
yes, she's the agent.
So the dynamics have changed?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Yes, programming has changed, definitely changed.
Okay, that's the reason why
Yes.
people are not as they were in the onset. So now we have a more wider
Yes.
responsibility accountability.
Yes, Commissioner. And with that position being open, it's, I believe, perfect timing for this stuff. We wouldn't want to do that when people are in the position.
I make a motion that we approve the adjustment of salaries for 2 current positions in the extension office with no increase in overall salary expenditures as presented to the court.
So,
I have a motion and a second, all in favor, raise your hand. All against?
you raise your hand.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see you. 5-0, thank you, Liz.
Thank you so much, appreciate your support.
No problem. Number 7, San Jacinto Neighborhood Plan Discussion and Recommendation related to the City County Initiative. San Jacinto Neighborhood Plan prepared by the City of Maryland Planning and Development Services Department. Andrew, how are you, sir? Good.
Very good, welcome.
So we are here today. It's been a little over a year since we started the San Jacinto Neighborhood Plan, the third neighborhood plan as far as initiative the city and county married to a few years ago. So today we've got our consultant Cassie Wright, one of our milestones, is going to walk you through the presentation, some of the highlights from the plan, and get your feedback. And tonight, this morning, we'd like you to take action. P and Z will also, Planning and Zoning Commission will hear this afternoon, and council will have it on for first reading at their meeting tomorrow afternoon. So we're gonna get set out. But Cassie, we'll make your way up front. She'll walk you through. We've also got Emily Kohler, our Planning Development Services Manager, that started with us back in August, halfway through the planning effort. Going to be leading the neighborhood plan initiative, looking forward on city staff.
Quick question before we do that, Andrew. So the reason this administrative work is necessary and the city will do this first reading is because it amends the comprehensive plan. So when we started this, so keep me honest, when city and county started these neighborhood planning processes, this is the only citizen-driven initiatives that amend the comprehensive plan. So it is really a direct way for those that live in those communities to have direct impact on strategic planning. Still accurate?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, so
Okay.
the comprehensive plan was adopted in 2010, so we'll hopefully be updating that soon, but each time we go on this neighborhood plan, it is an amendment via ordinance adopting very specific goals for those neighborhoods.
And why that matters is because it has to be vetted during budget every year. It can't sit on a shelf, right, and say, we got that done, right, check the box. It has to be vetted for budget, and those of us that manage budget appreciate having to look through that, those complexities. So it's a different type of partnership, so just wanted to call that out, because we only see one of these formal plans once a year.
I can see the incremental progress that has been made over the last year. Outstanding work for the city and give all of our plans.
Sure, not to say, of course, Commissioners McGee and Vaughn sit on the oversight committee with city council members, Powell and Hayes as well. So this is basically monthly to go over each plan, make sure we're moving forward.
I just have one issue with this.
It's
If
this,
you,
we're not on that one. We're on this one. We're not on that resolution yet. I just didn't want you to have a different issue. It'll be a second.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? I'm doing wonderful. How's everyone?
Good.
So my name is Cassie Wright, and like Andrew mentioned, I've been leading this planning effort over the last year with the San Jacinto neighborhood. And before I get started, I just wanted to say that it's been really wonderful to have the support of Potter County and also the city of Amarillo. I've been really impressed. I came here from the city of Denver, Colorado. And I'm just really impressed with how involved the political leaders have been in this planning effort. So this plan began actually, I would say, last year in January, because the city started compiling a lot of the existing conditions data long before I started working with the community. So the first step of the plan was to really analyze and visualize, thinking about, what is working, what is not in the neighborhood, setting a vision for the community, moving into the strategy section in about June through October. We started thinking about what can we actually do to impact change. We started finalizing those documents in November through December, and now we're starting to adopt. I will mention that the community, the planning advisory committee that has been involved with this process is continuing to be involved in a newly formed neighborhood association. And so we're really excited to kind of move from planning to implementation. But I told these folks it's gonna take a really long time, so they need to be patient. Anyway, for those of you who aren't familiar, here's a map of the plan boundary. It is probably what most people think of the traditional San Jacinto neighborhood, but it also kind of juts out to the east of Georgia. To include kind of I don't want to say forgotten area, but kind of forgotten area in between San Jacinto and downtown. The reason for including that section is because it's part of the AISD catchment area for this neighborhood, and because it just seemed to make a lot of sense from my perspective to include this area where you could actually foster some economic development opportunities that wouldn't necessarily be available in the older historic kind of residential section of the neighborhood. So the final plan, I think you've all received a copy, includes an overview of the planning process, a section on neighborhood history, an existing conditions analysis that, again, is based on data population data, data about the environment, the buildings, utilities, existing traffic and transit, land use and zoning. We also, though, as part of the existing conditions section, included a portion that talks about the outreach we've done. We had a ton of opportunities for public engagement, 5 public meetings, 8 advisory committee meetings, 16 focus groups, 2 surveys, and over 300 people participated in all of those events. The plan includes a vision statement and guiding principles, which is sort of similar to the North Heights and Barrio neighborhood plans, but we actually made sure that we based a lot of this planning effort on what had already been done, but there are some unique components to it. We've started to, or we did, figure out some goals for the neighborhood, some action items, and then we've included 3 transformative projects in this plan, which again did not appear in Barrio or North Heights plans. And all of these filter up into these areas of focus. There's also an implementation section in this plan. Similar to the Barrio and North Heights plans, it includes kind of action items, a list of people who are responsible, but again, I'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing a little bit differently with this section to hopefully make it a little more robust. The other thing in this plan that doesn't exist in the others is some key takeaways from the existing conditions analysis and the public outreach. Number 1, we believe that reducing crime is critical to making change in the San Jacinto neighborhood. It's one of the top crime neighborhoods in the community and actually has the Project Safe Neighborhoods program that is actively engaged here. We believe that the overall economic well-being of the neighborhood is dependent upon stabilizing the housing conditions. This includes increasing the number of owner-occupied units, currently about 60% of the neighborhood rents. It includes rethinking the condemnation and demolition process, which isn't always totally popular, I understand. However, we are seeing some negligent and absentee property owners who are allowing their buildings to become very derelict, and quite frankly, they've become some problems for public safety and have been cesspools of crime, actually. We want to assist existing homeowners and property owners with maintenance, reducing property-related criminal activity. We do not believe that the market is going to fix this problem, so we do believe there will have to be some sort of public intervention. Along those same lines, I think that deconcentrating poverty is a really key thing that we need to consider in this neighborhood. The true definition of concentrated poverty is where 40% of the area population lives below the poverty line. In San Jacinto, it's currently 35%. So what does that mean? The median income in San Jacinto is currently $30,032. And overall, in Amarillo, it's $51,198,000. The poverty line for a family of 4 is defined as $25,048. So 35% of the neighborhood is making less than $25,000. It's not healthy. Concentrated poverty obviously leads to other issues like crime and delinquency, negative effects on education, psychological distress, and other various health problems. So by concentrated poverty, we're actually taxing our tax dollars even more to deliver more services to this area, so we think it needs to be addressed. I will also mention that as part of that, we want to consider reallocating the distribution of HUD vouchers. Almost 20% of HUD vouchers in the city of Amarillo are in this neighborhood, where only 4.2% of the Amarillo's residents live there. So that's kind of turned upside down. I'll say that again. Almost 20% of HUD vouchers in the city of Amarillo are concentrated in this neighborhood, when only 4.2% of the population lives there.
So could you dig into that a little more when you talk about deconstructing that, what does a tangible example of something like that look like, right? And maybe that's further in the plan.
It kind of is.
Yeah, okay.
I'll get to that,
Okay.
because we have thought through some solutions, and I don't think it's the responsibility of just the city or the county governments.
Sure.
So we'll get to that a little later.
Okay.
Managing illegal dumping and maintaining alleyways has come up again and again. This neighborhood is a junkyard for the rest of the city, and we need to figure out how to better regulate what is happening in the neighborhood. People get, companies dumping their construction waste here, tires, et cetera, are just thrown into people's personal dumpsters. It's a real problem, and it's hard to monitor, but again, this is something we think needs to happen. We believe that the International Building Code standards are important to promote public safety and housing, and we've heard from some property owners that they want those to be relaxed. I'd recommend you don't. Granted, there are some things in the International Building Code that maybe don't totally apply to Amarillo, Texas specifically, but they're adopted on an international scale and are intended to broadly guide housing and building development. And I just don't think it's a good idea in a neighborhood that's had housing neglected in the past to relax any sort of building codes. Finally, we think that Route 66 and the 6th Street businesses are probably one of the biggest assets to San Jacinto. However, they're a little fragmented. So we really want to try to create some synergy among the 6th Street businesses, and again, celebrate the historic Route 66 that runs through it. I'm not going to read this vision statement, but just wanted to point out that this has come from the members of the community. And I will say that I think my biggest takeaway from this engagement process is people are really proud of the funky, eclectic nature of the people, the buildings, and everything that is what we think is San Jacinto. These are the main areas of focus. So every goal, strategy, action item has been categorized into either economic development, housing, clean and safe, infrastructure, sustainability, and social capacity or community building. And I just want to go back, like, people in the community are really interested in environmental sustainability, which this is kind of a new area that never emerged in the other two plans. So that was kind of fun and unique to work through with them. There's a huge implementation matrix as part of this plan. The snapshot on the left is like just a glimpse of the over 300 or 130 strategies and action items that exist. So similar to Barrio and North Heights, we've got a table that says what's going to be done, who's going to do it. But I think different than the other two plans, we're trying to figure out how much things are going to cost, who's going to fund it. And again, I think that we are trying to put some responsibility in this plan on nonprofit organizations, business owners, residents, in addition to the city and county governments. That was a really strong message that we delivered.
A lot of emphasis on partnering.
Yes, yes.
These agencies, but also the community having a vested interest in being more accountable.
Yes, and really, I've said it many times throughout this plan process, it's not the government's job to build community, it's the people's job, and that includes all of us. The other thing we did when we were working through these goals, strategies, and action items is we asked our advisory committee and the community to think through not only what they want to do, but to dig up some case studies and best practices from other communities so that we could go back to people who've already invented the wheel and think about how we can maybe just tweak that slightly to make it Amarillo specific. So I think that was a good exercise. It made people feel like we can accomplish this, it's happened in other places, and we aren't alone as we're trying to implement. So with over 130 strategies and action items, it was kind of like, where do we start? So we are working with the community. We just had an implementation kickoff meeting last Thursday to start taking that list and boiling it down to about 8 things that we're going to call projects in motion. So hopefully in March, when they reconvene, they will have those kind of nailed down. But we've had some other priority projects that we know might come up just because other people in the community are working on them. And then, like I mentioned, we have some transformative projects. A few examples of things that the committee and the community came up with. Some sort of sidewalk repair program that's a joint effort between the city and the property owners. A gentleman found a program where They used an entire block's worth of, or an entire block was organized to do some sidewalk improvements. It provided for some economies of scale, so construction costs would be lowered. And then, again, had some sort of city, resident match rather than putting all the responsibility on either party. The upper right corner, picture is a gateway to, Route 66. The lower right, a lot of emphasis was on let's make the neighborhood, so a really low cost item that has come up is to do a community building planting of hyacinths, because in Spanish, jacinto is hyacinth. So I thought that was really creative, and again, something very low cost, involves a lot of the community. Improving lighting, but specifically converting the lighting to LEDs or some other environmentally sustainable lighting was another example of a priority project. And then improving pedestrian crossings. This is a crosswalk that not only would slow traffic because it's interesting and unique and drivers would go, oh, what the heck is that in the middle of our road? But it also kind of celebrates the artists in the neighborhood, and so that was another creative project that emerged from this process. I've touched on these transformative projects. There are 3 of them. They are going to be the big kahunas of this plan, if you will. So they take on several goals and strategies that are in the implementation matrix. It's going to require a lot of stamina because they're going to tackle some of the most complex issues of the neighborhood. I'm really recommending that we figure out how to get some paid staff involved, maybe not even city or county staff, but just an independent kind of organization maybe could be funded with dedicated ongoing revenue streams to make sure that somebody's got their eye on these prizes, because they are the necessary big moves. Those 3 projects are reducing crime and improving overall neighborhood safety, unifying the 6th Street businesses, and fixing the housing crisis. I'm just gonna quickly go through these slides, but I wanted to touch on, this is the structure that we set up for our priority projects. So our advisory committee was always answering these same questions. What are we gonna do? Well, the first thing to improve neighborhood safety, that is a pretty low cost deal, is to develop a neighborhood safety task force. It's going to be a group of residents, government officials, policymakers, law enforcement officers, etc., to start communicating about the issues. We found that throughout this plan process, one of the biggest problems with this neighborhood and creating cohesion is that nobody really talks to each other. There's not a great venue to do that. There's no websites, etc. So we just wanted to start getting a coalition to discussing how to improve the neighborhood. What could that task force do? Again, facilitate communications, develop some strategies, leverage resources, and unite partners that already exist, because there are a lot of people doing a lot of great things, but again, we just don't know who's doing what. And then possibly recommend a public safety plan for the city council to approve and adopt for future implementation. We also asked, again, when we were having our committee members come up with priority projects, to identify resources and case studies. So again, we have 3 communities where we know these kinds of task forces exist. One is in Durham, North Carolina, San Clemente, California, and Baltimore, Maryland. Some resources, the National Crime Prevention Council has a wonderful website with about 20 or more different programs that could be implemented for very low or no cost, but it would involve just community discussions. The second transformative project is to unify 6th Street businesses and ultimately to form a PID along 6th Street to help not only bring in revenue for improvements along that corridor, but also to, again, have a unified place for these folks to discuss. Actually, a precursor to the PID would be to form a merchants association to involve the businesses first. We've, again, researched some initial startup funding for this. It could be $5,000 to $10,000 to just get a consultant on board to help facilitate some conversations and research opportunities. But here's some things that the PID could do: create some really polished and professional marketing materials to drive people to this corridor. This picture in the lower right is my favorite. These are called ambassadors. They're kind of like the community welcome wagon. So these folks exist in a lot of downtowns across the United States, and they're really there to welcome people, to keep the neighborhood clean and safe, to be a direct connection to the police department if there is illicit activity. They're really wonderful resources that I think could add a lot of value to the district. The district could also raise money for banners, streetscape elements like benches and lights. Again, just wayfinding neighborhood beautification projects, et cetera. There are a couple of resources available for this. The International Downtown Association is a group that kind of just deals with all the bids all over the United States and beyond. And then the Texas Local Government Code dictates how a PID has to be formed, et cetera. Case studies in the state of Texas include Grand Prairie, Austin, and Fort Worth. Here's the last one, Mercy, that I think you were starting to ask about earlier, like how can we start dealing with the housing crisis? I think that a community development corporation is fundamental for kind of spearheading the efforts of not only directing or recommending policy changes, working with the city to report vacant and dilapidated structures, dealing with deconcentrating those HUD vouchers, et cetera. It probably is going to be a nonprofit organization that could do actual rehab itself or award grants to other private developers that might be interested in rehab and redevelopment. So estimated costs for this one are going to be a little bit more money because it's always expensive to build housing. So we're thinking $400,000 to $500,000 to start. Who's going to do it? Again, a housing expert that is a paid staff person to kind of facilitate this work is necessary, with obvious members from the community, including financial institutions, attorneys, the city, probably Potter County, and other corporations. What could this organization do? Again, develop programs for improving the dilapidated structures, work with city officials to create or revise existing policies, figure out how to raise the bar for landlords who are receiving HUD vouchers, work with the city to create other incentives. That came up a lot. Maybe if we had some tax incentives or whatever, we could facilitate redevelopment in this community. Partner with Habitat and other private sector developers, facilitate rezonings and other policy changes, and finally start working with the community to build wealth. We really need to start working with these neighborhood residents to help them understand financial literacy, build their abilities to actually invest in their own properties, help teach them how to maintain their homes, and create household budgets. It seems like simple stuff to some of us in the room, but for these folks, it's way, way, way above their own capabilities currently. Again, there are resources all over the United States where these community development corporations exist. Lubbock has one just down the road. Brownsville and Austin also have a couple that I think would have would provide really nice models for a CDC in San Jacinto. Yeah, and I think that is it. Does anybody have any questions? And sorry, I kind of clicked through this pretty quickly, but I know we're on time schedule too.
Rest. Leading from the initial onset with the North Heights plan and the Bowerville and now the San Francisco, we learned quite a bit. And done a very well job. And I think basically everything you said is spot on. And we got to work together. It's just not about government primary in and of itself. It's a part of it, but it's about partnering with the business community, nonprofits, and the residents themselves. I think that has to be the way it goes.
Commissioner Kelly, I'm interested in some of your input. I know San Jacinto was partly in your precinct as well. North Heights, obviously yours, Bonnie on mine.
I used to work this San Jacinto area as a young police officer back a couple of years ago. I won't go say how many, but even at that time, there were some structures that I visited that had to talk with the folks there that needed to be destroyed at that time, and that was back in the 60s. And those structures are still there, the people still occupying those residents. To me, one of the first things that need to be done, some of those structures have got to be destroyed.
Yes.
Get those landlords, take care of their business.
That was kind of my observation too. It seemed like, people were remembering the heyday of San Jacinto, and when I was looking back into kind of some of the history, I was like, I feel like it's been problematic for 5, maybe even 7 decades at this point. And so there's gonna have to be some heavy intervention to affect change, because it takes a lot of effort to redirect a ship that's been pointing in one direction for that long.
That's what I think you should probably look at some government lending, because you're right, a lot of those infrastructures dilapidated, and you would look at them and you have to say, who would live in? Well, they are those individuals that have to, but that goes back to the accountability of the landlords. And specifically, and how do you administer that? How do you work with them to improve, hopefully on their own, but if not, to mandate. So, that's what I think is going.
Yeah, and I think one of the great things about the plan is that they all, in their own unique ways, they provide these transformative projects, right? Think big, what are the big visionary things for your community? And those that live there, right, they get to speak life into their future and in their vision, and they have an opportunity to do that and disagree and dialogue. And what's happening in a lot of these plans is the local leaders are building up, right? They're now showing up to public comment, advocating for their own policy, understanding how budgets get written, understanding that it can't be done in 1 year as much as it's very painful for all of us. So I think everybody is learning and has an appreciation for the process. That doesn't mean we like it, right? Because it takes longer than we anticipate on the outside. But I think these neighborhood groups that are now building up, and presidents and vice presidents in these groups, is an amazing thing to start to see in these communities. And that's really where it starts. All 3 of these plans, I just kind of jotted off to the side, have a couple of things in common. And the big goals are amazing, but all 3 of them are calling for sidewalks, alleyways, and lighting. Yes. All 3. So as much as we want amazing things and economic drivers in each of our communities, for the most part on the net, I think people just want to get out of their house and feel safe and want to walk out with their dog or their loved one and take a walk, and they want to throw away their trash and there not be a couch or a tire back there. I mean, so I don't want to dismiss the very simple things, because those are things that municipalities should be taking care of. And every one of these plans speak to those 3 things: sidewalks, alleyways, and lighting. So if we did nothing in just that, those communities, that would be a game changer. They are neglected for 50 to 60 years, and we're now seeing that. And it's a painful dialogue, to be very honest, but it's needed.
All those things are beginning to happen, but it also, you need to have some accountability.
Sure.
And that's what we missed that. And I don't speak just from the citizen responsibility, accountability, but it's also the government responsibility, because they afforded the opportunities to remove a lot of that debris and put out an educated statute of how to do that, but it's no follow-up on it to the degree that it's being done. They'll remove it, and then the following week, it's right back. Someone else can, and you're right, it's a disposal area for the citizens, the city of Amarillo, and everybody dumps in a particular area. It's that wasn't always think about.
Yeah.
So it's
We have some programs not too long ago where they had a weekend where they picked all that stuff up.
Still do.
One of the very first things they did in the North Heights area was picking up tires.
Sure.
Amazing amount that we would have to
and then the following month, we had an alley full of tires, and certainly that they weren't being disposed of by citizens in their community. It had to be from communities, and that's being done, and without any seemingly accountability, and that's why the citizens are frustrated.
I agree. Well, to my fellow members of the court, every time each one of these comes up, I just always say, just from the bottom of my heart, just thank you so much, because our small little $75,000 investment to the city, who is very much doing the heavy lift on this, it goes such a long way in these neighborhoods, and it is our small way to be a partner in that. Over 80% of our population in Potter County lives in the city of Amarillo. So we very much are a part of this dialogue. And so thank you to each one of you that continue this. I know our next plan is Eastridge, and then we'll have to come back to the table. There's no shortage of neighborhoods that needs that, right? But I just wanted to personally say thank you to each one of you, because when this started, we didn't know exactly what it would turn into. It was just, let's try to formulate a partnership, and so as this continues to grow, thank you for your leverage and your flexibility to see what it could turn into for all of those that live in these areas.
And it's opened up a corridor, and we'll see that here shortly on the next agenda item. So that will be enhancement to the city itself.
Right. Well, and in closing, I'd just like to say, I think you're right, and I think one of the things that this neighborhood plan process has allowed from me, and like, I'm a newcomer to Amarillo, I've only been here for 2 years, but it's really obvious that a lot of these citizens have never been provided or offered the opportunity to have a voice, and I think that this is wonderful, a wonderful way to start that. But I would also recommend with the projects like Guyon Sanders Resource Center that you remind them, hey, there's a plan in place, there's an organization in place that's kind of looking at what's happening in the neighborhood, and recommend that they go and do some outreach with those neighborhood associations, because I don't know that the neighborhood association knows about some of these things, and I just think that after having built all this trust over the last year, it'd be hopeful to continue that conversation.
Nancy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't need to do anything. Number 8, St. Anthony's Development.
We do need action,
We do.
Judge, yes, Andrew, keep me honest, he's nodding, yes.
Yes, please.
We do need
To
action.
approve it for a recommendation to go to the judge, to go to the city council, I'm sorry.
Okay. Need a motion?
I make a motion, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Moore.
I move to recommend the related city, county initiatives under the neighborhood plan declared by the city of Amarillo Planning and Development Services to move this to the city of Amarillo and recommendation from the county to accept.
For approval.
For approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. All right, number 8, St. Anthony's Development, to consider and act upon a resolution to support the housing tax credit application for the Commons at St. Anthony's Development, and the resolution to be submitted to the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs.
Judge, we have Mildred Darden, I think, in the audience, with us. She is the president of the North Heights Neighborhood Plan, and this is really a resolution to support an initiative that's happening. And Mildred, I invite you, if you'd like, or a representative from the Commons Project to tell us about this. Or Andrew, they're all looking at her. Andrew looks like it's me. This is not our first, as Andrew's coming up, this is not our first time passing a resolution for these housing credits, but it is another year coming around. And so I thought it would be helpful. Yeah, so we'll have Andrew speak to that.
Sorry, I had about 10 people in the audience, I'm probably gonna say something. So council recently, at the end of January, adopted a resolution to support this project again as a sort of official process to award points in the application process. It did come last year. Last year we ended up about, I think we scored the 3rd place range. We're currently slated in the #1 slot for this project. Just to give you an update on the basics about it, it is an almost $28.5 million project proposed on the east end of the St. Anthony's property along Amarillo Boulevard. They're proposing 124 units, apartment complex, 36 efficiencies, 45 1-bedroom and 43 2-bedroom. This would be affordable housing restricted to seniors, senior living. So just to give you an idea, the income levels for a 2-person could exceed approximately $34,380, and a 1-person household would be approximately $30,120. And then 13 of those units of the 124 would be reserved for lower income, which is 30% of the area median income. The rest are a mixture of 50 and 60%. So as far as the timeline, they're continuing to do their due diligence on the project, getting letters of support, like is what before you today, as far as the resolution supporting the project. And then they'll continue to work on our application over the coming months, and then in July, the TDUCA would make recommendations awarding projects for all the regions of Texas, including this one.
What was the total project cost in this one?
$28.5 million. Major investment.
Catalyst.
And you mentioned, our community has moved up from 3rd place since last year to number one.
Yes, and part of that was thanks to the community, city council, elected officials submitting letters to the TDHCA to change their rules. We were at a disadvantage last year with this urban core population threshold of 200,000. We gave some bonus points to Lubbock, so now we're on a different playing field as far as that
So
criteria.
it doesn't mean that the ball's not here, we're still encouraging, citizens, community organizations, governments to go and participate in those public meetings.
Yes.
Draft letters to send to, Austin, I've got some of the addresses that, and, to encourage them to consider strongly Amarillo, recipients.
More letters the better, and then they do have public hearings scheduled throughout the state. They'll have opportunity to speak in person.
Just out of curiosity, how many people in the audience are here for this particular item? Stand up, let me see you. All right. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for coming. Okay. Andrew, thank you so much.
And to dovetail from the North Heights plan, this was one of their transformative projects. And so if and when, let me put that out there, when this is done, $28 million in this neighborhood is just mind-boggling, and it would be a catalyst to so much change in a community that needs it. So if you are at a place where you can provide public comment, or you have family members that live in this neighborhood and you would like information of how to provide that, please let us know, and we're happy to get you that. To even send in a letter of support or show up in person and give public comment. But this is a formal letter that matches what the city of Amarillo has done, and a resolution that will then get passed along from our municipality to support their initiatives.
With that, I move to approve of the act on the resolution to support the housing tax credits. Application for the comments at San, I always want someone to explain to me what the comments are. I know what it is, but I don't.
I think part of the deal was that they tried to get something else, and there's so many people with that same name, that's what they came up with.
My bad, I'll resume.
Julie's looking at that. You're in motion.
The comments at St. Anthony's Development and the resolution to be submitted to the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand.
Just one, correction, the name H.R. Kelly is misspelled.
We can get that corrected.
How can you?
So
The
noted.
E, welcome to the club.
Thank you.
Last name. Was that did you vote in favor?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay. Tell them to sign the right name on that.
corrected there.
Okay. Thank you on that.
Thank you,
Number 9, sale or lease of community property, discussion only. A lot of discussion going on today. To discuss an inquiry by Amarillo Senior Citizens Association regarding possible acquisition of 2404 Southwest 6th Avenue for relocation of the Amarillo Senior Citizens Community Center. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Judge. Yeah, very good, thank you.
Just for the record, would you state your name?
My name is Bob Maney. I'm representing the Amarillo Senior Citizens Association. I became involved with them 2 weeks ago, so it's fairly new. I was contacted by Jamie Wakefield, she's here in the audience, she's the president of the association. It was brought to my attention by Jamie that they were losing their home of 47 years located in the Amarillo College building, which was the old Amarillo High School, which burned, and then I think Amarillo College purchased that building. And then in around 1973, that's when the Amarillo Senior Citizens took possession of that building through some funding through the Dividends Foundation. So 47 years they've been in that building. Due to a bond issue by the Amarillo College, they were given notice this last April that they had vacated that building by October the 1st of this year. So, they're in a dilemma. They need a building. They need to raise some money. Therefore, they called me, and I haven't decided yet if I'm going to take on this challenge or not, but we have been associating with them. I've been working with Nick Wade. He showed us this building at 2404 West 6. It looks like it would fit. So I've kind of done some preliminary studies on this building. I took an architect over there when we toured the project. We felt like that it fit their needs. I toured the present facility of around 25,000 square feet. And so many functions go on there. They have a kitchen. They serve around 100 meals a day, 5 days a week. They have bridge clubs, they have domino clubs, ping pong, pool, dancing, line dancing. There's just many, many different functions that go on at the Amarillo Senior Citizens. So, through walking through there's so much of the space that was in the 25,000 square feet that wasn't really being utilized. So the 15,000 square feet located at 2404 West 6 could be a great possibility for them to move into. So after touring the building, I contacted Tad and then mentioned, I think, Judge Tanner. We don't know how to make a proposal. So this is preliminary of how can we make a proposal to Potter County to secure this property. Our goal would be to renovate the property of about $1.5 to $1.7 million. I have already visited with a couple of foundations in town with one commitment of around $100,000. That's just been in a week's time. My background has been in fundraising. My background has been in capital campaigns. When I was on the board of directors of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, we bought the building at 411 Fillmore and renovated it. I was on that board for 7 years, raised around $3 million. Then I went on the board of directors for Faith City Ministries. We raised around $3 to $4 million in a period of time of 7 years to renovate the just now vacated Faith City Ministries. Renovated and built their kitchen, chapel, a lighthouse. And just recently, I'm president of Panhandle NUC, New Unit Chapel. And we elected to raise $1 million to build a chapel at the Neal Unit here in Amarillo. We raised that $1 million in 5 months. We dedicated that building July of 2018. And we started another campaign to raise $1.2 million for a Plymouth Unit chapel right next door. We secured those monies in around 4 months. We just dedicated that building $1.2 million capital December of 2019. So therein is why I'm thinking they called me, because I have the ability to raise funds and also have the ability to build the buildings, renovate buildings. So the discussion today is how can we go about securing that property? Lease, purchase, or other different means of how we can occupy that building. So,
a question, and this may not be a question that you would be able to answer, and it may not be for anyone here too, but how do you or do you not have a collaboration with the Hilltop Senior Citizens Association? Is that separate entities, or why do we not have that we can work together?
I asked Jenny to come up and answer that since I'm 2 weeks young. But I understand the Hilltop, and then there's Wesley. So there's 3, I think, entities in town for senior citizens, kind of geographically around. But I'll let Jamie, if that's okay.
We are not affiliated with each other. We have worked together at different times.
At one time, you did.
We did, and I do not. That was before my time when it no longer happened. I don't know what happened, that they no longer work together. The city of Amarillo does not support, us in any way because, we are nonprofit. They say they cannot help us. We do work with the food bank, and, at one time, I had proposed that why did we not form a council with Hilltop and Wesley and us and work together, apply for some grants, divide them 3 ways and go forward. And that was just, it never got off the ground. It was just shot down immediately. And no one was interested in that proposal. So that kind of went by the wayside.
And I guess when in the not too distant past, was there not compensation driven by the city of trying to locate a central port for all the senior citizens to be a part of?
There was, excuse me. Oh, there was, and they did do that. And what that's called is Senior Without Walls. And what that is the city of Amarillo provides space in their hall for an office that they post everything online for seniors. And if you want a particular activity or whatever as a senior, you would just go to their website and search for your activity, and it's up to you to the initiative to go do it. And that's a great idea, but we have found at the Senior Citizens Association, so many of our are not computer literate. And I mean, it's just totally beyond them, and quite frankly, we've offered to train them, and the answer is, I've never done it before, and I'm not gonna do it now. And, I mean, we hear that, you cannot believe how much we hear this. And a lot of the people at the Senior Citizens do not even have internet at their home. So a computer would not do them any good. I support what the city did. I think it was a wonderful idea. And I think going forward in the future, we'll probably serve even more people because our age of people are definitely more computer literate.
But the long and short of it, you are independent of all the different centers.
But right now, we do not have, we cannot get, we have tried to get assistance from the city, and we do not get it. And they have their variety of reasons, but it leaves us kind of in a very peculiar place. And we do work with the food bank, and we do give away a lot of food. We do give away meals at the senior center, as well as we sell them. Anybody can come there. You do not have to be a member to eat at the Senior Citizens, and we have very good hot balanced meals every day. But people who are in need do get free meals at the Senior Citizens.
I have a question, if I may.
Just a second.
Oh, go ahead.
Is it divvied up between all the centers utilizing the food bank, Wesley at the center, Hilltop, and also when you were program?
I do not know if they have applied for membership to the food bank. We are a member of the food bank, and we have reports and whatnot, but we are not together. And as I understand, and I may be wrong because this is kind of secondhand, he said, she said stuff, but I understand that they do provide meals at Wesley, and I do believe they are catered in, but I'm not sure if they are brought in.
But they have their own kitchen staff.
They have their own kitchen staff.
And the kitchen staff, I think there's 2 that also cook meals for the daycare, and they cook for the senior citizens as well.
Well, but our senior citizens, we have our own separate kitchen and our own separate staff, and we do go to the food bank every day, or close to it every day.
Yeah.
And we have a table of produce or bread or whatever the food bank had available that day that people can just pick up and take home with them. So we have a lot of seniors that come there every day, and they get a hot balanced meal. If our grill was gone, they would not, so many of them would not be able to get their hot balanced meal every day. And our servings are large enough, many of them take homes, so even though they get 1 meal a day, they're really getting more than 1 meal a day. And so it would be a real loss to the community and a real service to the aging population of Amarillo, which we're growing every day, to lose this ability to serve them for their food needs and things like that.
You prepare and serve in-house.
Yes, and we also, feel like seniors need to be active. And so many seniors, if they have no place to go, they sit at home and watch TV, and they age and decline very quickly. And our goal is we get people in there, we have so many people that come, and they have never met, anyone there. And they eat with friends, they meet 8 people at their table, they visit while they eat, we invite them to stay. And we offer such a wide variety of activities to keep them active. We have balance and exercise classes, we have a pool club and a bridge club the list just goes on and on, but we do offer so many things for seniors to keep them healthy, active, and to keep their minds involved. And it's very important to our community.
And you to be applauded for that. I was just curious about how we have so many different segments out there when we get seemingly.
Right.
I think there's, 500 members?
Yeah, 584, I believe.
Present members.
Yes, members. And, we feel like this can grow. But a lot of people are very nervous, they're afraid that we are going to lose our facility. And
Janie, thank you for the work that you have taken on and advocating for so many people. It's amazing that you're taking time to do this and have taken this heavy lift. So thank you for that. And there's so many people in our community. Since we do have the city here and we've got Andrew, you mentioned to the Seniors Without Walls. I thought that there was a facility component of that. Is that the same strategic plan that Linda Pittner drove? I thought there was a facility piece that the city put something on the table, but I have not seen that formal plan.
They discussed it, but they went with the digital version.
I'm sorry?
It was part of the discussion, and then they went with the digital version that they put in place.
Okay. Do you think, based on, and I definitely don't want to put you on the spot here, so if you need to take this back to a work session, I don't need to. I work with Andrew often, so we do this on, but based on this discussion, do you think that at least the council needs to be briefed on this, right? That this discussion is at the table, and if there's an opportunity to work together in a different space. I know we just came off the hills off of the discussion of our homeless population, our senior population. Yeah, different topics, certainly, yeah, I wanna be mindful of that, but we're all in it together is my point to that, Commissioner. And so I think it's an opportunity to have that discussion is what I'm putting on the table.
Sorry, if only Kevin said this is
I know.
kind of his area,
That's
but I can definitely follow back up with him when I get back to the office and see where they are in that discussion.
Sure.
But from a single neighborhood plan perspective, I kind of like the location.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a good fit for the neighborhood and
I do
have that
too.
in the same center.
Okay, thank you.
I'll take that back to Kevin.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to say something?
I'll say that having it occupied the building would be fantastic. Cut down on windows getting shattered, people messing with the parking lot. It wasn't ours, but if we put roofs on it, we would have to, insurance.
So speak to what we currently have ongoing there now.
It is a empty building, turn the utilities off due to water leaks. The only things in that building are old 8-pointers that somebody knocked a floor off and tried to take during the snowstorm.
So where's that going if, you don't have that?
I've been told they don't put those in there anymore, so I don't know what to do with that. That's what, there's no activity in and out, we just have to drive by and make sure that no one is getting into that key.
Judge, what are your comments? I know your name's on the agenda.
I don't have any comments other than that I was gonna talk about this afternoon.
Okay.
Oh, good.
I would love to see us do this. I would love to see us get that to y'all, so you can use it, get it out of our hands.
Well, like I said, we're so preliminary that we need to do so much more work. And if we could secure the building, then I could get the plans drawn. If the plans being drawn, I can take that out to the donors. This is where our goals are. I don't know if that falls into the enterprise zone, that we can get the facade grant.
I don't think it does. I'm not sure. I don't.
Get it over a little bit.
I don't know. I'm not in charge of the zone. I think the map is already run, but just to be honest.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
I think it is outside. But those are the things I'm looking for, is the facade grants, upgrade the neighborhood, talked to the guy next door, CMB Printing.
Yes.
He's elated, so, I think the longer that building stays there, the longer it's gonna deteriorate.
Yeah.
Like they said, they've already turned off the water, there's a water leak, and, so the inside needs to be totally. But the bones are there. The
bones are there.
The building, it's a block building, and I think it would fit our needs, their needs, perfect.
Okay.
I think it's great
Yeah, the
idea that we
question-
do something with this building. I'd say we move forward.
I just wanted to mention to Tad, what do you think, what do we have to go through in order to get this done? Do we have to go public on this, or?
Well, I think initially, give these folks the time to evaluate the building, as much time as you need, and we can give access to that.
We've toured it, with Clay.
We're gonna talk about that this afternoon.
I've given them environmental reports, everything we know about the building they
We've
have.
done the asbestos, we've looked at the facility, and being in the construction business, for 34 years, I'm pretty familiar with what it's gonna take to renovate the project. So, yeah, we like, our goal is to move forward.
Legally speaking, if there's a will, there's a way. We can't just give away county property, but legally, if there's a will, there's a way.
And then I like that, I'm gonna need to go into that for you, Chad.
Well,
Scott's looking at me.
well, thank you very much.
Asterisk.
With a little asterisk. I was waiting for it, Scott, I was waiting for it.
Given your history in fundraising, you come see me in about 3 years to see what fundraising you can do for the jail.
Oh, Judge.
I'm teasing.
There are no more hazards.
What I might add is, all the things we got done is for 501c3s, and my pay has been zero.
Thank you so much. Okay, number 10, we don't need to do anything about this, so just let it go like this.
We'll let this.
Okay, okay. Number 10, IT update. David, you still with us?
Yes, ma'am. Sure am.
We're good, we're good morning. It is still morning, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Have a lot to report today, in addition to the normal day help desk functions. The Caitlin and Julie's area is done, asterisk, except for the network switch bracket that was lost in shipping, so they had to order another one. That's expected to be here Wednesday, so hopefully that will be complete this week. Hopefully. We're still waiting to hear back from the vendor on the county's internet upgrade. Waiting to hear back on the exact price for that upgrade. And we've received the remaining parts to prep the LEC for the server moves. We're working on that. And have a meeting with one of the staff in the CA's office this week to kind of make sure that we're crossing all our T's and dotting all our I's and meeting compliance for the training.
I was contacted by Randall on Friday about when you get the district's and county clerk moved to the cloud, right? What is that gonna, it's gonna free up some space for us, apparently. I may be talking out of line here, because this is not my expertise. Randall's concerned that it's gonna crowd their lines. What do you call it?
Okay, it's like Potter County System Internet. The prosecution offices are on the internet. The clerk's offices are about to get on the internet.
Right.
The internet is 150 right now, and I think it's expecting to do 500. And the county is a gigabyte, 1,000. And when we were in the county system, we were uploading and downloading stuff in 2 minutes. We're doing 20 minutes now. And that slows us down tremendously. And my first assistant, we talked to David, and I don't think 500 is gonna be enough once you add the two other biggest offices that deal with the business into that pipeline. And we don't wanna start doing 30 minutes before something's uploaded. So that's our concern. And quite frankly, I would like to see the IT committee start meeting again so that we know what's going on, or they can tell us what they're doing and let us give them feedback from how that's affecting us.
So that's a valid concern, and that's hence the movement forward with upgrading the county's bandwidth. The initial calculations for the Odyssey movers, or the Odyssey users, if all of the users are concurrently using that connection, is about a third of the county's bandwidth now, in other words, about 50 meg. So, even with that taken into account, initial calculations, it's still gonna be more than the county has now. So you should still see a speed up. Should.
Let's say 15 minutes is gonna be good enough either. I mean,
I'm always down for more bandwidth. So we can get more pricing. Now, another aspect of that is how the county users use that bandwidth, which, I think we could probably have a discussion about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to be really honest, people are streaming music, movies, there's a lot of things happening on the internet, and so we need to have a really honest conversation of what's happening in the departments.
there's gonna be more people on the internet than there is gonna be on this system.
And that's part of the policy changes that I think are coming. I don't wanna speak to that, so please help me here, but part of the policy changes are to tighten some of that up, restrict it, remove it. So a lot of the dialogue is starting to come.
So
keep me honest though.
Some is restricted and
who's
some
streaming
isn't.
music
You
is
made a
movies?
statement there that
Who's got time to do that?
There's reports, would
If
you like
folks
to
are
judge?
doing, I suggest that folks are doing that.
Suggest you get a report.
But it's head of the department now, and let them fix it. It's a managerial.
No kidding.
is that an if?
There's a report that can be provided, am I incorrect?
That is correct.
Let's provide the report to judge. I don't see any reason why not. Or to the court, bring it to the court, judge your people, no, bring it to the court. I
I
don't
guess
have
now's
a
as good a time as
policy
any.
issue, bring it to the court.
We use YouTube all the time for training. It's free training. In fact, our entire wildland recertification program is on it, and we can't access it.
That's a different deal. Yeah, I think she mentioned that.
Yeah,
Let's
so
bring
that's
it
what
forward.
I'm saying, is you're gonna see that used in our department. We use YouTube quite a bit for research and for training. So we kind of get upset when that's taken away, but as far as music and movies, that's not what we're doing. I mean, we are using YouTube as a training.
David, can you give me that report?
And we can provide it to the court, but I don't want you to feel like you
I
have
don't
to take
mind, I
that
don't
on.
mind feeling like taking that on. I have a problem with that.
Okay.
It's like a problem.
Somebody that does it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are you still up on the next one?
Number 11, IT department to consider and act upon the purchase of Dell EMC ML3, ML3E, whatever. Backup hardware in the amount of $19,233.86 for delivery in 2020 to be funded in 2020-2021.
Yes, ma'am, this, I mentioned in court a couple of times before, this is, for an additional, backup solution for the county that would allow us to, store these backups off-site, possibly be involved, in the event of a, disaster, whatever disaster that might be. And so this is a tape library piece of hardware along with, some media to get started. And the vendor is willing to do, go ahead and let the county have it now, if we do a letter of intent to purchase after record. So it doesn't have to be-
Carrie? You good with that?
As long as the court understands it will have to be part of the next year's budget.
this would be a capital request with the dollar amount, is that right?
18,000.
Where's Bob when you need him? Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the purchase of Dell, EMC in the amount, for backup hardware in the amount of $19,223 for delivery and to be allocated in next year's budget.
We don't have the money in the budget now, I think we're.
If you wanted to take it out of contingency, you could.
Do you think it would be appropriate, Carrie, to purchase this and then as we get closer to the end of the year, to reevaluate it so that if we really need contingency for, you know, God forbid something happen, or is it just semantics?
I would prefer to purchase it now.
Purchase it now, okay, can I withdraw my motion, Julie?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, okay. Would you like me to restate?
Yes.
I make a motion that we approve the purchase of Dell EMC backup hardware in the amount of $19,233.86. Funds to come from contingency account.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor? 5-0. Okay, David. All right. God, we're still here. Number 12, resolution for grant application to consider and act upon authorizing Judge Tanner to execute an application for federal assistance to be submitted to the Office of the Attorney General Criminal Justice System for the continuation of the VAWA grant violence against women during fiscal year 2021. This is the usual thing we do every year, right?
Right, this is our recurring grant on the prosecutor. And it's a 30% cash match. Pretty much identical to what it. Wait a minute, my bad. No, I'm not.
You still bad.
There's one thing we're doing the follow, right?
Yeah.
Okay. There's one other thing we've added to that, it is a system that Attorney General's office has. And well, we're wanting to add, and the grant will pay for it.
Wait, Randall, that's for the vote.
This one? That's the vote?
That's the vote, this is the VAWA.
Erase that?
Okay, never mind, okay.
Yeah, okay.
I make a motion that we approve authorizing Judge Tanner to execute the application for federal assistance to be submitted to the Office of the Attorney General Criminal Justice Division for the VAWA grant, Violence Against Women Act.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, again? 5-0. Okay. Number 13, resolution for grant application to consider and act upon authorizing me to execute an application for federal assistance to be submitted to the Office of the Attorney General Criminal Justice System for the continuation of the VOCA grant.
The only thing we've added to that, and this is 20% cash match, the only thing we've added to that in the grant is the Attorney General has a program that their victim letter, it's got document storage, it's got timesheet storage, and most importantly, it's got the tracking information for everything that happens with our victim assistance deal, so that when it comes time to do the grant and get all your numbers, it gives them, they've got the numbers and stuff already set, so they just have to pick them up in instead of them manually doing all that stuff. So, and it's $1,982 a year.
Randall, that includes the Victim Assistance Department at APD. It includes the Victim Assistance Department and the Emerald Police Department as well.
For our liaisons over there. And actually, one of our liaisons has worked at a place. I think she came from Porter. And they have had it, and she thinks the world of it. And so, we've added to the grant, match on that.
The application for federal assistance to be submitted to the Office of the Attorney General for Justice System for the continuation of OPA grant during fiscal year 2021, and authorize Judge Tanner to execute the application.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, raise your hand. 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work. And number 14, resolution for grant application to consider and act upon authorizing Judge Tanner to execute application for federal assistance to be submitted to the Office of Attorney General Criminal Justice System for the continuation of the BALA grant. This is for Scott Brumby's office.
Same as current.
Same as, yeah. Okay. I need a motion.
Move to approve authorizing Judge Tanner to execute an application for federal assistance to be submitted to the Office of the Attorney General Criminal Justice System for the continuation of the
Grant.
Motion and a second, all in favor, raise your hand. 5-0, thank you. Number 15, Sheriff's T-Code Profiling Report to review and recognize the Sheriff's Racial Profiling Report for the year 2019, filed with the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement and submitted to the Potter County Commissioners Court pursuant to Articles 2.131-2.134 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure. So, thank you. Number 16, same thing on this one, so recognized. If y'all have any questions, speak up. And then number 17, same thing, for Constable Precinct 2, Constable Precinct 3. Any questions? So recognized. Number 18, equipment purchase to consider and approve purchase of laptop computers for sheriff patrol units using county assistance district funds. Sheriff. Yeah, no.
We have some computers that are at the end of life. We started looking at those when we had some that were broke. We have a couple of them that the hinges were broke on, and then IT went through and researched all the other ones. And we have 5 that we need to replace immediately because they're in the life. When we buy computers like that, we already reserving money aside and for 5 years down the road to replace those. So we don't have the funds to do that, but these are laptops that are out in our vehicles that our deputies use on a daily basis. We have 17 that need to be replaced. I'm begging for 5. I've been recommended that we go ahead and get all 17. And I don't know if there was a discount because we got the 17 or not, off the top of your head. But I do have 17.
So is there any reason we didn't vet these during budget time?
We're fine, it's fine now.
Right, but I mean, to go from that to end of life, that's usually not typical. Do you have them on a rotation schedule anywhere?
It kind of ran into the same thing we did. The same ones we use in the trucks are kind of the same ones they use in their vehicles. And that's why we're looking at this. Ours, we had budgeted for upgrades and found out we had to replace. And they're kind of in the same position where it's, like I said, we use the same equipment, we do the same things with them. So I have a little better understanding of this now that we've gone through it. But that's kind of what this account was for, was to help with emergency situations. So that's why I'm asking that we do all 17 of them so they can be replaced. We've saved a little bit of money on the purchase of the ambulance, and hopefully we'll be able to save a little money on the back end of the building. So I think financially it's a good decision to go ahead and get it.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your CAD.
No, it's.
Carrie, I'm sorry, you're about to say something.
Yeah, it's a legitimate use for the CAD. I just want to make sure that we watch our cash flow so that we can pay for the building. And realize we sold that effort for the fire department. However, we sold it at thinking we'd only bring in $500,000 a year. And we many times past that, so I think it's a good use of it as well. So
I said all along, they need that. They need to replace their equipment. It's just, I don't know how you would run to get this. IT's still going through them. They're going to try to update the other ones, but who knows what will happen.
What does it cost?
40,
They're right at $50,000.
$49,334 for 17.
Carrie, can I get your opinion on the CAD funds, please?
Excuse me, I've tracked the cash flow very closely on those, and we're in good shape.
And can you remind me of appropriate use for the CAD funds? I know this came up, if there were any dollars that could be used for road and bridge at some point, so I'm just trying to get my mind right for budget. Could you remind me of the use?
It's road and bridge, fire department, sheriff's department, and I think public libraries and such.
And county judge.
So, road and bridge, fire.
And we have stayed on top of it, and we consulted on this before this.
From an IT perspective, is there anything else, any additional costs that we need to be mindful of, replacing 17 laptops?
Shouldn't be any additional licenses, licenses should all be the same. That also includes the dock station.
The dock
that they have to
station.
have.
Thank you.
I'm moving to approve the purchase of the 17 laptops for the sheriff's office.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, raise your hand. 5-0. Number 19, employment items, that A should not be maintenance and facilities, should be road and bridge. The discharge of Jason Walker as maintenance tech, effective January 23rd, 2020. And in the elections, the increase in hours from 20 hours per week to 40 hours per week for Chandler Hill is to convert to part-time effective January 3rd, 2020.
I make a motion to accept the employment items as presented.
Have a motion and a second. Nicholas, anything on your projects?
I think I've talked about everything except for the big project. They're doing utility work, we're gonna start closing down the sidewalk as soon as they get the machines. I've talked to HOK a couple of times this past week. One of the things that's coming up is we're gonna narrow down some dates if the commissioners are interested in one-on-one.
Yeah, so I have some dates in mind. How do we coordinate? Do I just call you directly? to
Sure, if
coordinate?
you have some dates, you can either email them to me.
I'll just call you.
I think it's easier for me to do y'all schedule it, I think they can adjust accordingly. So I think that's pretty cool.
Okay.
We could make them come
And
tomorrow.
beginning when? That's beginning when?
Just, she's gonna send me some dates, and, I'm gonna send them the dates.
Like next week or?
Probably, I would give them at least 2 weeks.
2 weeks for travel, because if not, their flights will be very expensive and we need the taxpayer to this.
I would assume that it would be probably the last week, maybe.
Maybe first week of March, somewhere around there. That would make some time.
So they're working on the documents that will eventually go out for us to choose in general. So we're trying to close this project out and get it out so we can stay on schedule, but they know that they are gonna have questions that I could sit here and.
March 2nd or 3rd?
I'll be back with you.
Third's the election.
It's got an election coming.
So it's a great day or not a good day?
I vote early anyway.
Okay.
And we're looking at sometime in April for the groundbreaking, correct?
Like the ceremonial groundbreaking or like the actual?
Ceremonial.
I think so. Maybe tomorrow is done.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Nicholas. Number 21, the jail report, we have 534 people in our jail, 83 of those are female, and they are all still there and not been shipped out. 86% are felons, 7% are misdemeanors. So, any insurance on it? Woo-hoo, 2 times in a row, no wrecks.
Well, there's one, it just
Oh, don't
doesn't work.
Yeah, wait for this one.
We have no executive session, agenda items for next time.
Could we just add a, Potter County Government Day update?
Okay.
And we'll give a copy of what the day will look like. Potter County Government Day, it's April 23rd, we can just add that as an agenda, and we'll give everybody a copy of what the day will look like.
FYI, just Commissioner's Court, I put these two brochures on your place. These were put together by the Chamber of Commerce and Ag Extension for the agriculture and also condition of health in our
Thank you.
We have another letter from
Okay, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your patience.